Today I'm joined by with Nick Murphy, who's the current college captain at Canterbury College, and also with Greg Wacker, who is the head of the Canterbury Centre for Entrepreneurship and Leadership, which is very exciting. And I'd love hopefully a chance to chat about that soon as well, if that's okay with you, Greg.
Sure.
But I wanted to say thank you so much for joining me. Nick, you're in the middle of your final exams at the moment.
Yeah, nearly there.
How are you going?
Good. Yeah, fairly happy so far, but one to go. So
one to go.
Yeah, stay strong to them.
Yeah. How does that feel? I can't even imagine.
Oh, see, in the middle of it, you're not really concentrating too much. I'm kind of waiting till the end and let it all come, I think.
Yeah. Oh, good. And Gregor, thank you for you, because I mean, you're an educator, you're running a leadership centre. Every day is hectic and crazy. So grateful for your time.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Well, we might get stuck in. Greg, if you'd like to do an introduction first, maybe just introduce yourself with your name, your role, possibly a bit of your background as to how you found yourself in the position that you're in now. And I also would love to know why you're so passionate about leadership or youth.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, as Linda mentioned, Greg Wacker, I'm the current head of the Centre for Entrepreneurship and Leadership at Canterbury College. Had about 20 plus years in education. Didn't start off thinking that this would be the journey that I would have, but that's how it's turned out. The majority of that time has been spent running boarding houses. So, and 15 years of that period of time also running Air Force cadets at my previous school, and a bit after that also. So I suppose those two things joined together is where I found that passion for student leadership. The student leadership was very important in the boarding house, making sure that having that presence of the students in boarding, and obviously through the leadership that I was doing, training and experiences I was gaining with the Air Force cadets and the students that were doing that at the time. That's where I sort of got the passion for it, I suppose, and I can see it has great benefit for the students in giving them a presence and also allowing them to make a difference and leaving a legacy.
Yeah, you do it so well, and I think the whole concept behind what you've created there at Canterbury as well is really advocating for innovation and for creativity and allowing young people just these opportunities to see how much of a great change they can make when they have those skills and someone backing them like you.
Yeah, no, it's been it's not often that in a leadership journey that people take that you get the experience of actually having leadership training. Most of the time I sort of say that, you know, through most of my educational journey in the leadership space, you know, most stuff's been sucked up through osmosis, or, you know, you make a mistake and you think, well, I know I'm going to learn from that one. It's not often. In actual fact, the first real leadership training I had was when I joined the Air Force in a reserve capacity, and they did leadership training. That was the first actual leadership training I'd done. Yet I'd taken part in leadership training through the student experiences, but not in my own experience. So that was unique for me. But seeing that, giving them those opportunities, I don't think it's something that for students, they can necessarily have those experiences, and particularly in such a short frame of time, to give them the insight so they understand what the vision is, and give them the experiences that they need to move forward, I think is important. And that's where, you know, using an organisation like Wiley's been valuable in allowing them to do that and just have those tastes which then you can then build on.
Yeah. And I love that you're referring to your journey of leadership as a journey. And so that's going to be my segue over to you, Nick, to introduce yourself, share your role, but your leadership journey this year, how would you describe it in 3 words?
Well, all right. Yeah, so I'm Nick. I'm now the past school captain. We just had our handovers, so complete tenure there. I thought about this, and I think the most appropriate is making the uncomfortable comfortable. And I think that's really important for both you as a person and the people that you're around, and building relationships and things like that to make them more comfortable around you.
I love that. And, you know, we often refer to that at Wiley as well. And Nick, going through that yourself, if someone sort of heard that phrase and they're like, oh, how do I do that? What sort of encouragement or tips would you give them if they were really trying to do their best to make, you know, be comfortable in the uncomfortable?
Yeah, well, you only get there by doing it. Okay, you have to go through that phase of being uncomfortable. The only way to get good at something is to be bad at something. All right. So you have to kind of wait that out. You have to persevere through that stage, and then you can get to the comfortable bit.
Yeah, good one. Speaking of uncomfortable things, I think Greg, you referred to it before with those leadership learnings and lessons that they're forever. I think leadership is a forever learning game.
Mm-hmm.
Is there been anything that you've learned about leadership over the last sort of month or term that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I suppose from two ones from myself. You know, I was from a pastoral care behaviour management background before I took on the centre I'm currently with. So it's always good to take a bit of a step back and just sort of reflect and have a look and see how things are going. And it's given me an opportunity, I suppose, to reflect on my own leadership and from where I've come to where I am now. So it's given me the opportunity just to sit back and reflect on that. And also with regards to the students, we've just obviously taken on the new student cohort, the new student leaders, and it's always interesting to see them come in with such enthusiasm and energy and ideas, and it's just making sure that that momentum is maintained with them, that they understand that they do have a role to play, and keeping that going. And we'll talk about it later on, I suppose, just in some of the ways that we do that. So it's making sure that they know that they're appreciated and that they have that open communication is really important. So those two things, the communication, also just occasionally just stepping back and having a look and seeing how things are going or how things went, and taking that on board is important. Yeah.
It definitely is. Is there any kind of questions or any way that you do that reflection? If someone was new to it, you know, what could they pick up from you there?
I suppose I'm lucky that you know that there were people that I worked with in my previous role, so it's sort of asking them about how I performed and what I did, and any feedback in relation to that. It's being comfortable with the people that you're working with, that you can actually go to them and ask them for feedback, and they know that it's genuine and authentic, that you're asking for that. It's not something that's randomly come up. So it's, you know, if you continually do it, it doesn't seem out of place. I'm sure if you hadn't done it, then suddenly you go up to you and say, "Can you tell me how I'm going?" They think, well, that's pretty random. But also not waiting until you have to do a 360-degree survey or a leadership survey or something like that. And being when it does come up, being able to take that on board and not take it as a personal criticism. I have and Nick's probably heard this, that you know there's no such thing as constructive criticism. It's either a criticism or it's feedback. And criticism is anything that makes you feel defensive. So putting it in such a way that you don't feel like you're being criticised, that it's feedback, and you're open to that. And I think if you're open to that, staff will be, and students would be more opportunistic in coming to you and telling you what's wrong, or hey, look, you did this, it didn't work out too well, and you take that on board and can move forward.
I love the part that you said, well, then we can move forward, because we say that it's about feed forward, we call it, because that, you know, someone taking time out to actually provide you with constructive thoughts on maybe something you're doing well, but also something that they can see improvement on, is going to allow you to be a better leader tomorrow than you are today. So Nick, what about
being open to that,
it's hard. Yeah. Any lessons for you recently, Nick, as you've just handed over your badge?
Yeah, so that was probably the biggest thing. And what's come out of it, I kind of feel this responsibility that I didn't know I would have, to kind of pass on any knowledge that I have. And I kind of take pride in the fact, knowing that I can give my little bit to them to help them move forward. And I think that's really important. And the fact that even after handing over leadership, you don't feel different, right? You still have this kind of mentality that you're a leader and that you can create change if you want. And it really enlightens you to the fact that you don't have to have that position. You can keep that mentality afterwards, but you can also build it beforehand, and you don't have to have gone through that to have those ideas and those ideologies.
I am nodding my head here because I agree. And I love hearing you talk about that sense of responsibility. I feel as leaders, we all feel that at different points of our journey. And for you talking about that responsibility to pass on some of those skills is a good segue for the next question. It's Are there any skills that you think, in these student leaders that you see coming in, or the ones that you've been working with, that you feel are lacking? For me, it's important that, I ask that question so that we're making sure that we provide the right sorts of support and resources for young people to be able to develop in those areas.
I think it's slightly more of a pessimistic answer, but almost a little bit of practicality. Like these students are coming in with so many ideas, so many great aspirations, but when you get there and you realize you have 12 months to do what you want to do, you have to really hone in on what you truly want to get behind, the initiatives you actually want happening. And I think it's important that people come in with a sense of limited time, so that they can focus on what they want to focus on.
Yeah, that's great advice. Greg, what about for you? Is there anything that you've witnessed, particularly coming from pastoral care now in a leadership capacity? Is there something that you believe, we need to work more with young people on at the moment?
Yeah, I do agree with Nick that, they come in and then realise that they can't change everything in 12 months or less. But I think it's important about leaving that legacy. So although I haven't finished the project, the legacy is still there for someone else to pick up and continue with. We're looking at Canterbury at the moment with regards to a functional framework for leadership from year 4 to year 12. And I think experience is that aspect that they're lacking, that sometimes it's nothing, and you might have some outdoor ed, and then suddenly year 11, you sort of start talking about it, and then year 12 comes in, and they're sort of learning on the fly a little bit. And by the end of year 12, or into their leadership time in year 12, it's looking really good, but your time's over. So it's trying to give them a bit more exposure to that leadership, and through outdoor ed and other experiences, we're going to work on that. I think the key one is about vision, is giving them the exposure and understanding of what that vision means, and that living that vision throughout their time is really important for their presence during that time. So having that vision and the presence that goes with that is really important. So developing those three things, the experience, the vision, and the presence, is important for me.
Great answer. Nick, I'm going to roll to you, because I can't believe you handed your badge over, in February this year. It was a postponed event because of COVID, but in February we were together with, 100 other leaders, and it was all new. So when you think back to your time at ASLC, are there a couple of things that you picked up there, skills or tools, or just memories that you'd like to share that you really thought were valuable for you in your journey? Yeah, well, I thought, because we're all new, right? We're student leaders. It's kind of the first time we've been thrust into a role like that. Going into an environment that's so supportive, and everybody's going through similar things, similar worries, similar concerns, similar aspirations, right? So getting to an environment where you can talk about those and you can develop those and kind of take your own time with it and learn from others, I think that was really important and really crucial to kind of some of the successes we had throughout the year. And also ASLC from the outset, it's a very high energy, high octane event. And that's rewarded, and that's great for people who want to develop those. But also behind the scenes, you get those opportunities to develop other skills, like critical, analysis, things like that. Those more personal relationships, as well as the getting up in front of a crowd, that I think are all very valuable to leaders. Yeah, great share. And it's so true, isn't it? It's like you can be in that environment that is so high energy, and it reminds you how influential you are as a leader about creating culture and energy. But then there are all those things that you're doing behind the scenes that perhaps, I hope, are helping those young people with the practicality part that you were talking about before too. Yeah. Greg, you have been investing in ASLC for a very long time, and Wiley's very grateful for your continued support. We have done some incredible things together with leaders and young people over the years. Why is it that you keep sending to ASLC? What 2 or 3 things do you find most valuable?
Along similar lines to what Nick was saying, it's making those connections, and through those connections, normalising the experience for them and the affirmation that comes with that. So knowing that they're not alone, that there's other students who feel exactly the same way they do, that they're all sort of starting off that leadership journey, albeit at slightly different times, in different areas and around Southeast Queensland. but it's just that making the connections and letting them to start think like student leaders. So creating those visions, talking to other students about what their problems are at their school, and you know, they sort of all work out. They've all got the same sort of problems, and they all want the same sort of thing at the end of the day. But as to how they're doing that, that might be a bit different. So it's getting those ideas, making those connections, and not feeling so isolated in some cases.
Yeah, it's a big thing. I think I definitely personally over the last couple of years have felt that isolation of leadership, having to lead through the pandemic. So knowing that you're not alone and there are other people going through it at the same time is invaluable. Greg, you sort of alluded to this earlier, that momentum that's carried on. You know, how do you carry on the momentum from when students return from conference and head back to school?
Yeah, so this year with the centre starting up this year, we ran Maximising the Badge with Wiley, which was a great experience, and we did some feedback from that, and we got some feedback from you guys as well about what that looked like. And the students were, you know, we deliberately set out, although we've got 6 houses, we deliberately set out to make sure everyone had their plain white sports shirt on, so there was no segregation and people didn't know what houses they were with. But it gave the opportunity for the year 6, 9 and year 12 leaders to all get together, and they had experiences that they wouldn't have normally had on that day. So that was good. So we kept the momentum going that way, and they had regular meetings. So within their houses, and also the prefects with their portfolios have regular meetings every other week. We had a leaders symposium for our captains. And that was an Anglican schools leaders symposium. It was the first time we've had it for this year, where we had Anglican schools student leaders from Anglican schools in Southeast Queensland come to Canterbury. And I think Nick will agree that was a great experience. And again, making those connections and realising that they're not alone and they're all wanting the same thing by the end of the day. And then also we're using a current platform called Nectar, which Nick was part of and all the student leaders were part of, in trying to capture their ideas and their innovations and create a legacy from that. So in the past, we've sort of had meetings and we've spoken about it, but Nectar's allowed us to, it's an Australian platform, but it's allowed us to gather their ideas, and we've continued with it this year as well, in the next group that's coming through, and it's allowed us to do some really great things, and we're moving forward with that, and we've refined it a little bit more, Nick, with Edwina. But yes, it's looking really good.
That's so good to hear. I think, you know, legacy has come up so much on this conversation already that we've had, and that is a big part of leadership. And you kind of need to have, as you said, Greg, that vision to start off with so that you can formulate that legacy of what that's going to be. Nick, can you share with me, are there any things that from ASLC, any idea sharing or thoughts that you had there on conference that came to life when you were back at Canterbury as part of your legacy in 2021?
Yeah, it was less so one specific event or idea. There were plenty, by the way. I think I picked up probably 20 different ways to fundraise. But there was one particular session where we sat down, Maddie and I, we were the 2 from Canterbury that went, and we kind of designed a framework of what we wanted to do throughout the year and what we were going to link it to and how we were going to achieve it. And that was School Pride. And we kind of linked that to our houses and our year 12s interacting with younger grades. And I think that provided the basis for a lot of what we did throughout the year. And it linked also to what Mr. Wacker was talking about with Nectar. It was one of our big criteria for the new ideas that were coming through that hopefully we can pass on to next year's leaders and so on.
Yeah, so good. Is there one in particular that you may have fleshed out? If someone was listening to this, they're a new student leader and they're like, oh my gosh, that's what our school needs, is, you know, we want to focus on school pride. Is there something that you could share that worked well for you?
We have probably inter-house competitions, and things like these are always good because you build that camaraderie within your own house and that kind of like banter with other houses that is really important, like a dysfunctional family that somehow comes together. So I think those worked very well. Yeah,
so great. Thanks for sharing. And Greg, obviously you've seen the students come back to school year on year. Is there any highlight moments or initiatives that you can think of?
Yeah, the one they've come back with over the last couple of years, and it's coming I spoke about legacy before, and you can't necessarily achieve it in that short period of time, but it's something that over the years, and this year it definitely has moved forward, and next year it's looking even stronger, is making connections. We're an ELC 12 school, so it's as Nick said, making those connections greater within the house, and the house system's set up to do that in a pastoral sense, but also making strong connections with the junior school. So that's been one of the key points that, the last few years students have come back with and wanting to make that strong, and they've got ideas about how to do that. And we've spoken about it. We've tried to do a few things, but it's definitely gaining momentum. And this year is probably, I think, a tipping point, a turning point with regards to that. But getting the senior students down to the junior school to get to know those students for when they come up here, a mentoring system, a buddy system where they can actually connect with those junior school students. So that's one that came up big with regards to that Nectar platform I was talking about. But it's also one that comes up every single year, and there's definitely more momentum and more push for it. And yeah, definitely this year with the through the house system as well, they're making more connections with regards to that. So it's been good.
I think that's great to hear, particularly for someone in a new student leadership position, because we forget that we can plant these seeds that might not have that tipping point in our leadership year, but mean so much to the students that are moving through and eventually get there. And as we started the conversation with, I think Nikki was saying, you can't do everything. And so it's still so beneficial for you to have those conversations, share those ideas, because those ideas might get picked up at different points in time. And you can just start chipping away, doing smaller things that one day, your big vision of what you hoped would have happened might happen, on the days that you've left Canterbury College, but you become part of the alumni and you still advocate for your school. There's so much pride, I think, that comes with leaving school too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, final question, and the reason I guess I put this in there is because just as you shared, then Greg, about these like seeds being planted and then you don't get to really see the benefit of them straight away, it doesn't mean your leadership has been wasted. It's been really beneficial, but as leaders often we don't get to reap that reward immediately. I find with leaders sometimes it can be scary having conversations with big adults that have big job titles at school. And so I wanted to kind of strip a layer back and, ask both of you from the different perspectives of, maybe Nick, I'll get you to go first actually.
Yeah.
What's something that you wish executives kind of knew that, might be a little bit taboo, but also might just be something that you really do wish that they knew about young people, or that you think young people would like to share?
Yeah, well, I think we've done a really good job actually at our school of, I just want to preface, all of our execs are teachers as well. They all have at least one class, and I think that helps them connect and get a better perspective. But there's always that struggle of kind of walking the tightrope of allowing the student leaders enough freedom to do their own thing, as opposed to kind of maintaining control over what they do. And there's never a right answer, right, on how much you can kind of control what they're doing, and treating them as equals or students, because both have pros and cons. And I think it just comes down to really good communication, so everyone knows where they stand, everyone knows what's happening, and then whether anyone's crossed a line, how to bring that back and deal with that.
So well said. I think it is so important. And, this goes back to the start when we talk about feed forward conversations and the bravery that you need to have those. It's the same sort of thing, isn't it? It's being really open in your communication. And I think that perspective is challenging, but it can be made easier when you get a knockback, because an educator, a teacher, or a deputy says to you, this is the reason why. Maybe let's go and head in this direction. We can still have the same impact, but there's a roadblock here that's above my head as well.
Yeah.
And sharing those kinds of things.
Yeah. Like, as we touched on before, for most of us, it's our first time in a position of this kind, and we're going to make mistakes. And I think using that to build as opposed to take down is a positive way forward.
Yeah, so well said. Greg, what about for you? What's something that you wish all young people heard when they're working with executives and wearing a leadership badge?
Yeah, I agree with what Nick was saying. It's that line of communication. It's knowing that we've said already a couple of times, that they can't change everything within the year, and sometimes that their ideas may be beyond both have great expectations, but just aren't realistic in the school sense or achieving within that period of time. I don't think they can underestimate the communication and being able to, you know, have an adult conversation with those exec people, with the principals and the deputy principals about their thoughts, and not being afraid to come forward and actually say, this is how it is, but setting that up at the start to say, okay, this is how I want this to operate, and how we're going to talk, and make sure those lines of communication are always open. I think the other thing is also they need to realise they need to be in the business, on the business, not in the business. So what I mean by that is, you know, they don't need to be doing everything, but they need to be aware of what's going on. And, you know, if they've got this vision of a particular, like a mentoring, a buddy system in the junior school, they don't have to actually be the ones pushing it, but they need to be on top of the business. They need to be aware of what's going on and making sure everyone's participating in it. We've already had some experiences with some students who think they have to participate in every single event that's been going on since the captaincy's changed over, because they're the captain of competition, so therefore they have to participate. No, that's not your job. You can participate if you want to. Your job's there to get people to participate in those competitions. So being on the business, not necessarily in the business all the time, I think is a really important. Otherwise, they'll burn out. And being, you know, as Nick knows, my thing is you're a student first, and then you're a leader. If you burn out because of your leadership role, obviously then your academics is going to suffer. So, and that's where that line of communication is important with those people, so they can actually say, hey, this is what's happening. How do we work with this? How do I solve this? Or this is how I'm feeling at the moment.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And I do feel that that's the one thing that we all need to get better with is having hard conversations. It's come up time and time again, but you know, we have this like thing it's a hard conversation. It's not, it's like you approach it and you practice it. And I love, Nick, that you preface with that execs are educators and teachers in the classroom. And it's that reminder that we are all humans. We are, leaders are humans as well. We're all on this journey together. And it's a very rewarding one for those that do step up. So, well, I'd like to thank you both so much. Nick, it's awesome to see you again. I haven't seen you since the start of the year. Congratulations on such an amazing year. And
thank you very much.
Your confidence and your capabilities and your experience are just growing so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you this morning. And Greg, thank you for always being an advocate for young people, always pushing the boundaries, always, looking at ways to innovate. You talk about presence, you have presence, but I also really admire the fact that, you're looking at frameworks now, and that's about setting up for the future. It's not just, being there and doing it yourself. It's about making sure that it stands the test of time beyond you as well. So thank you for doing that for the future of Canterbury.
And thank you for the work you've done with the students over the number of years we've been associated. I can't remember how long it's been now, but thank you very much. And, we look forward to a continued partnership.
Sounds great to me. Well, have a great day. If you want to say bye while we're still recording, or a hello or a thank you, or
thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you, Bel.